Welcome to episode 551 of the Aussie Tech Heads, recorded on the 14th of September 2017. Aussie Tech Heads is brought to you by ATH Web Hosting at athwebhosting.com.au. Servers operate on SSD drives, immediate activation, SSL certificates, Aussie support, domain registration, easy install, WordPress, Joomla and Drupal. I'm your host, Jason Oakley. We have back again Australia's two top podcasters. I'm joined this week by Will Tompkinson. Hey, Will.
How do, mate?
You're down the bottom there now on this one. There's too many people.
Yeah.
It's like the Brady Bunch. And also with us is Shane. He's over this side. How you doing, Shane?
Hi, how's everybody?
Good. Good to have you back on the show again. And down in that little corner there is Luke. How's it going?
You'll know, Luke.
Not bad. How you doing?
How's everybody going this week? Pretty good?
Thanks for calling me on the telephone. Yeah, it's good.
I was couldn't get to do my radio show this week because there's too many fires all around here. They blocked off the road and just couldn't even get in there, so that was a bit of a bummer. But
you started them.
Shh, we didn't start the fire. I did, although on Saturday I took over somebody else's show because he couldn't make it, and the first two songs I played was "Smoke on the Water" and "Smoke."
Hi, Sonia. Sorry.
I'll be back.
Alrighty. Shane, what have you been up to, man?
This is like that BBC thing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Got it. We've had our own BBC moment. Sorry, Shane. Go.
That's right. What have I been up to since the last time I was on the show?
You going overseas to some Microsoft conference or something?
Yeah. I fly out on Tuesday, going to San Fran for a couple of days first, and then on to Orlando where the conferences is actually going to be. It was touch and go for a while there because of the hurricanes and all that kind of stuff, but they sent out a post last night saying it's all happening. So
you're on the Smart Traveller website? Got all your shots, injections and stuff? You're going to foreign country, you know.
US,
this is America. Now you need the injections against bullets.
And SJWs.
And hurricanes. So get all of those before you go over there, right?
Social justice warrior vaccination.
Exactly.
I plan on keeping a low political profile.
Keep away from the Nazis.
Come on, have some fun in San Fran.
Right? I was there in March. Just, keep away from certain areas. They can be a bit dodged, you know. One of the guys that I work with flew over there, I think it was a couple of years ago, and he hops off the bus in this district, and there's a couple of guys doing a drug deal in front of the bus stop. So he's like, I might get out of here. I had similar experiences, so I quickly kept away from that area as well.
Ah, come on. Where's your sense of adventure? You want to see the real culture, not the tourist version.
Yeah, I wish I had more
not the
time,
Kentucky
though.
tour. You don't want to see the Kentucky tour. You want to see the real drug deals going down.
I did get up to Petaluma and saw Leo and sat in on his podcast and had a chat to him, so that was pretty cool. So this week in tech. Yeah, you gonna go?
Yeah, I'm doing Friday night, which they don't normally allow people to go to. So I'm doing that for TNT on the way over, and then on the way back, I'm doing the Saturday afternoon stuff. So it'll be the tech guy and the screensavers. Oh,
nice! That'll be fun to see. Yeah, it was really good seeing the one that I did. I only just made it before the show started, but it was good.
When did because you were there for This Week in Tech, weren't you? So you were there for the Sunday show.
Yeah.
So I actually fly out on the Saturday, and I'm concerned that if the screensavers runs late, I'm not going to get back.
Yeah, it can be crazy. I was going to get a bus back, and in the end, I just got an Uber to take me down to the what do they call it, the San Francisco Bridge bus, whatever they call that, and it goes takes you down the highway across the Golden Gate Bridge. I think it's like Golden Gate buses or something like that. So I made it back in time, but it was a bit touch and go. But they had it was annoying because the company that I worked for had put on go-kart racing for everybody. But at the last minute, a couple of days before I was flying out, I'd already booked to go to see Leo. And then they decided to move that back an hour because they're like, people won't be able to turn up at 7 o'clock for go-kart and stuff, so we'll move it to 6. And I was like, well, I'll probably just be getting out of Petaluma by 6 o'clock. So, oh well, there goes the go-karts. Would have been fun, but it was more important to go see Leo.
Just wonder, with the demographic, how many people in this demographic are cosplaying Mario Kart when they get in those things?
Yeah, right. It'd be a lot of fun. I do like go-karting, but there's a once-in-a-lifetime chance possibly for me to go up to Petaluma and see This Week in Tech, so I just had to do it. So
For
we
sure.
should do a couple of stories, I guess.
Oh, come on.
Sounds good.
Are you going to cut that? You
Yeah.
actually sound like you smoked a joint.
That was a good segue. Dude,
Yeah.
don't give away my
Some
secrets. How do you
news,
think I
I
could do these
guess.
shows?
I feel sorry for the MP3 listeners.
I feel sorry for the elephant. State hackers from North Korea are believed to be stealing bitcoins to avoid the pain of tough new international sanctions. North Korea suspect... Is that good, right?
What? Using C Basic? Yeah.
think
All right,
so.
sorry. Keep going.
COBOL.
Sorry. I'm going to shut up.
No, don't. That's what makes the show. North Korea is suspected of intensifying cyber attacks to steal virtual currency in order to obtain funds and avert tightening sanctions, according to security experts. North Korean hackers have mounted attacks on at least 3 South Korean cryptocurrency exchanges since May, security researcher FireEye said in a report Monday. The attacks include an apparent successful one where 4 wallets of a Seoul-based exchange Yapizon were compromised. Local news reports said that in May, Yapizon had more than 3,800 bitcoins worth $18.7 million stolen, although FireEye said there was no clear indications of North Korean involvement in that case. South Korea's opposition Baruan Party lawyer Ha Tae-kyung has followed North Korean hacking attempts that had apparently stolen more than 90 billion won, that's $99 million, from South Korea through hacking attacks in 4 years to June, including cyber attacks on ATMs. North Korea has set its sights on the so-called next-generation financial markets, including virtual currencies, fintech, and blockchains. Alongside the UN-imposed sanctions, international cooperation is also required to curb the North's cyber hacking, which can be used to finance its nuclear and missile programs. South Korea has become one of the world's most busiest trading hubs for cryptocurrencies, with Seoul-based Bithumb ranking as the world's largest exchange for Ethereum virtual currency. In June, Bithumb was hit by cyber attacks, possibly linked to North Korea, in which information of about 30,000 customers were leaked. Some 160 customers are preparing a class action suit against Bithumb, complaining they lost around $12.4 million in total. So, North Korea is going to build missiles out of bitcoins. Maybe they glue them together, or...
Ugh. I'm going to shut up. Somebody else, please.
No, come on.
I missed the
This is the
story,
fun
so
one.
I can't help.
North Korea.
You say you don't look. You say you don't want to make it political, and then you just bait me the whole way.
I'm trying,
You want to
man.
look at the fake news come out of North Korea constantly. It is literally an echo chamber, like 2003's weapons of mass destruction, aluminum tubes, and all that nonsense. Like one person from Japan says, "Blah," it's mainstream media.
Yep.
One person in South Korea says, "Blah," it's mainstream. Now, if you look at what's actually going on there, I mean, for the first time since 1945, and the restrictions that Japan actually had on building arms, they were lifted totally because of this fake news, right, on North Korea. We're talking about a country in the 1950s, essentially, right? The
Yep.
only budget they have is in their military. So unless these people actually have, they're stealing people from China, putting bags over their heads, potato sacks over their heads, and sneaking them across, I don't see a massive hacking effort. You saw what happened with the Sony hacks, right? And first of all, they blamed North Korea until we found out it wasn't. It was actually an internal leak.
Yeah.
But just
Well,
to have
their
this,
Commodore 64s could be doing really good on the internet.
oh
They're
my
great
gosh,
hacking
maybe
machines.
Maybe they're doing. Maybe they're bypassing every 768-bit encrypted server that Bitcoin runs off. But unless they're stealing Chinese hackers to do it, it's just, yeah, I'm just so sus
Where would
about
they
these
get the money
stories about
to
North
fund
Korea.
Chinese hackers? They'd have to force them, right?
Oh, totally. Maybe they've got a little slave camp of Chinese hackers, but I don't think anybody in the North Korean government or intel services basically has the knowledge of Python or anything to do these sort of hacks.
So yeah, Will, that was North Korea stealing bitcoins from South Korea to fund its nuclear program.
Well, next I'll try and build a wall to stop it.
Could do. A wall of fire, right? A firewall.
I don't know. It's all it's all interesting news that's coming out.
Everything coming out of North Korea, you just got to look at where it. Like the first thing about journalism is verify the source, and
not anymore.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about the media.
Old days. How old are you
not
again,
the
son?
media. Journalism, not the media. But look at journalism and like verify the source. And the amount of fake news stories on North Korea that have come out where it's just been one spokesperson has said, and then all of a sudden it's headline news. It's just like, what? Can we not? This is 2003 all over again.
But I mean, the things you don't hear are the things like for the last 7 years or whatever it was, Korea's been trying to basically hand in their nuclear weapons. There was, they're basically saying, and then the US is like, no, you can keep them, and that's exactly why they wanted them to keep them, because then they got something to use against them.
But there's no independently verified intelligence agency report that links North Korea to anything nuclear. That's fact. All of this stuff that keeps coming out, it's all of a sudden it's ICBMs, and this technology with ICBMs is there, and then it's not. Oh, it's a hydrogen bomb. Oh no, it's not. It's these missiles, and it's Doggo ones, and it's all of this sort of stuff, and it's just like people aren't even paying attention. You're going, hang on, the story's changing every 24 hours about the capabilities. North Korea has had this nuclear deterrent since Un's father, Kim Jong-il, as a way of keeping balance with trade. That's it. And what they really have, nobody knows. Like literally nobody knows. And they certainly don't have anything. I mean, I've got sources and friends who've been over there and they live in the 1950s, man. Like these people literally live in the 1950s. The things that we do know
that are true is Kim Jong-il invented the bicycle and the hamburger. And always
he makes the sun rise and the sun set on his people.
20,
he brings the rains
behind par in golf, so he always wins golf. Those are the only true things that we know.
And he likes green, apparently.
He likes green.
Oh, and his father was terrified of triplets because apparently there's or twins or triplets, but there was a prophecy that he was going to be assassinated by twins or triplets. Like you read their news, it's amazing. It's literally the best Orwellian novel you could ever write. That's North Korea.
It's like those UFO magazines they have in America.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily, because there's actually usually more truth to those than the mainstream press.
Right. That's the irony of it.
At least there was 8mm footage. Yeah.
That's right.
It was blurry, but it was there.
That's why the journalists have gone over to independent magazines now.
Yeah.
Come on, stop baiting me. Come on, let's go.
You got a story, Shane?
Tech news, not politics.
Sorry?
You got a story? Or are you just going to bounce off us?
I'm just kind of weighing out whether I should kind of enter into the conversation about all this sort of stuff.
Jump in any time.
So what you're saying is that all that stuff that we've seen in the news where there's been the footage of the nuclear tests and the missiles, and especially the latest one where it apparently went over Japan and all that kind of stuff, all that's fake.
I'm not saying it's all fake. I'm saying every single time we've had a story, it's come from one source. And you look at you know what I mean? So usually what happens is if you have a news story, you need it independently verified. And what we saw in 2003, what we saw with Gaddafi, what we've seen with in Syria, right? What we've seen in Mali, we've had this constant fake news just pumped out by people with severe political and economic interests in those regions. So what you need to see is intelligence communities verifying each other's statements. And so what we do know for fact is that Japan, for the first time last year since 1945, went from a non-aggressive policy to a strike-first policy. And they have been begging the United Nations, the international community, to overcome they've had restrictions on how much they're allowed to build their military since 1945. And they've been begging for years and years. And now Shinzo Abe's in there. They've completely been able to, because of this North Korea threat, be able to build up their military and drop their restrictions that have been put on them since 1945. Same thing with South Korea. It's just a vassal of the United States, et cetera, et cetera.
So when you're basically... They found a convenient one.
Yeah, it is a very convenient one because North Korea is terrifying in terms of it's like that drunk on the street that just stumbles down there, and you've got a bunch of early high school kids or primary school kids basically going, see that drunk there? You know, he's a pedophile. See that drunk there? You know, he murdered his wife. You see that drunk there? You know, for me, when you go back and actually source where these statements are coming from, they're always with people who have an interest. And ever since I found out, you know, because I was pro-Iraq 2003. Like, I wrote over 200 articles in support of it until I realized how wrong I was. And now I'm very, very sus. Every single time you have the intelligence community of Japan, in the same week, they're meeting to discuss removing sanctions to build up their military. In the same week, you know, like, I want to see independent verification of all of this stuff, because if there's one thing I know fairly well, of anything, it's mainstream media, you know, having... you know, my postgrad studies in that. And with, you know, 96.2% of our news coming through one channel in Australia, I'm so damn sick of seeing gossip promoted as, because what's going to happen is if we set a course to war, which they've backed Trump into a corner here, right? What they've actually given him is two options. One, sanction all products from China who supports North Korea. Walmarts will be empty, squared, and he'll be impeached.
Yep.
Julian Assange came out and said he'll be totally impeached if he dares do that. Or two, go to war. One thing we do know is 28 million people will die within the first 72 hours of a war. Two, they're going to have upwards of 40 million refugees pouring into China and South Korea and Japan if they go to war. This is not like taking out Mali or Syria, man. Like, this is some of the highest concentrated populations on the planet. So we're being presented again with the illusion of choice, one of two options: sanctions or go to war.
Yeah.
This is to me, the cost is too much to take it off the back of the military, like the head of the military of Shinzo Abe's Japanese government. To me, I think the international community really needs to do what they did with Syria and start doing some serious investigations and going, things aren't as they seem here. And it's not happening in countries like Australia. It's ugly. And there's no coming back from a nuclear war, man. And the sad, scary thing to me is you've got a 1950s psycho country like that drunk in the street versus the largest nuclear superpower on the planet.
Yep.
And both of their leaders are a little bit unstable.
Little bit.
And with the mainstream media, like, just wrapping this thing up, it's just like, hang on, let's not do 2003 again, because it's not going to be 1 million people out in the Middle East somewhere. This is going to be at least 28 million. See, George W. Bush was actually presented when he labeled North Korea the axis of evil, one of the axis of evil countries. He was actually presented with a military strategy, and it horrified him so much that he stopped talking about North Korea.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And the thing is, with this, they're whipping it up again, and people are going, North Korea. And I'm going, we've had 3 consecutive presidents look at that situation and go, this is like Armageddon if we do anything. Yeah. So, yeah, to me, I want more than just people with political and economic interests going, oh, yeah, he shot a missile and it's probably nuclear.
Let's bomb the crap out of him.
Yeah, let's go to war. Yeah.
So speaking of what you were saying with needing to verify with sources and also the problem with media in Australia, what do you think of the new relaxing of media restrictions in Australia on ownership?
I think it's disgusting. We already have. See, Murdoch is a very, very, very clever operator, and as of 2001, he'd basically consolidated. See, people think we have independent media in Australia. We have less than 4% of our media of independent origin in Australia.
That
and it's
bloody
worse in the United
ABC and
States.
SBS have got to go. They're working on that.
but you know, like the whole thing is media monopolization. We've seen it through Soviet Russia. We've seen it through Nazi Germany. We've seen it all over the world, and we're seeing it again since the early 2000s, where a message comes across an RSS feed and people think they're being presented with news when it's just basically the story of the day. Like how Kim Kardashian's butt can actually rate higher in the news cycle than 8,000 people killed in China is disgusting. It's disgusting. But media consolidation is already horrendous in a country like Australia. So this is why we see the rise of the alt media. And look, I'm not a huge fan of Alex Jones in InfoWars, but it is fascinating to see during Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather, days of media, over 86% of the population tuned into the nightly news every night to listen to them speak. Now, the highest rating anchor in the United States at MSNBC, Brian Williams, pulls 7 million per night.
Jeez.
Okay. Then you look at people like Alex Jones and InfoWars and all these other organizations around the world, like not just far right out there ones, but all the other independent media, they're pulling 100 million a month, right? They're pulling huge numbers. So people already have a massive distrust. And I think there is a place for alternative media. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this space. But it is fascinating. They're trying to consolidate the last remaining vestiges. 4 major companies basically owning the vast share of the West's media is a terrifying concept.
Well, they're all definitely going to be controlling what we're going to be seeing, and we'll only see what they want us to see and not the other things that we should really know about.
I mean, they kind of do already. I mean, even if you look at the newspaper space, you know, all the news effectively comes from 2 places, regardless of, you know, the newspaper or who actually publishes it.
Yep. That's why it's not worth reading any of them.
No.
So,
I
agree.
Well, it comes back to the illusion of choice, you know, like George Carlin beautifully put it out there. It's just, I use the analogy all the time that, and you've heard it before, but if I say to my wife, hey, you want to go for coffee? If there's 26 options to where we're going to go, right?
Yep.
After I ask that question, then how many more options are there to war or economics or anything like that? And we've been corralled for the last 4 generations into thinking that there's only 2 options. And that is the thing that the media elite and the economic elite of the world didn't bank on. They forgot that there's actually human spirit involved in all of this, you know? And we've been here before. 1917, we're exactly 100 years away from the Russian Revolution. And we've seen the cost of what it actually took through the 20th century when these ideologies run awry, you know? We've got 100 million corpses in its wake just to demonstrate what happens when utopian ideologies go to their full extent. And we're doing it again. We're doing it again.
Just
so
keep repeating itself.
Well, I think alt media is a necessary phenomena, and one of the things that happens is like I was asked recently to be editor in chief of an alt media organization here in Australia, and I politely declined because my genuine feeling is that if you've been red pilled on a subject, right, like it's depressing. It's seriously depressing if you've had that rug ripped out from you, and it's hard work. It's psychologically, it's emotionally hard work. The last thing you want to do is rush back to a behemoth organization, right? So this is why groups like InfoWars online are losing as many people as they're gaining every day, because they're just so big. You know, when people find that place where they can start, or they're comfortable in forming their own opinions and researching things for themselves, again, the last thing they do is rush back to another corporation. So, I think all of this is important. Just reminding particularly people who have just been so dumbed down in the West and this political correctness has just run awry in Australia, just encouraging them to speak again. And remember, it was okay to have an opinion 15 years ago. What happened?
Yeah, everyone wants to shut you down. Were you going to say something, Shane?
Yeah, I was. Actually, I'll address the opinion thing first because I was thinking about this today, especially around the whole kind of the survey thing that's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have an opinion, which is fine. And it's also okay to kind of express the opinion. Where I kind of get annoyed with people is when they try and then enforce that opinion or impose that opinion on other people. It's like, and with the whole media thing, whether there's 2 or 3 media outlets or whether there's half a dozen or there's 10, 20 of them, you're still going to get people that will just go to media outlets that reinforce their own opinions anyway.
Yeah.
And with like Facebook,
But that's what happens with the Facebook groups and stuff. People find other people who enforce their own opinions that already exist, whether it's right or wrong, and they just, group together and support each other.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, in an ideal world, yeah, people should research and dig deep and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know whether, because of the fast-paced world that we live in, I don't know whether people just put in the time and the effort these days, which is sad.
I always equate it to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Bible, right? You basically had the tree of life and you had the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And that story is just an example of some things are just too big for us, right? Okay, so once upon a time, you knew if there was a domestic going on in your neighbor's house, you genuinely knew what was going on and you could help. You could be of some effect. If God forbid, somebody in your family was raped, you'd go and help them, right? Okay. What's happened with mainstream media is we're constantly staring through this box of basically programming, and it's telling us how bad and evil the world is. So you've got a girl gang raped on a train in India. You can't help that. This is not to be narcissistic, right? But you can't do anything about that. You can send your money to a charity, right? You've got 50,000 people die in an earthquake. You've got this, you've got that, you've got, 3,000 people killed. And it's constant bombardment of all of this knowledge that has no benefit to you. In our great-grandfather's generation, if they were a fisherman or they were a farmer, they knew how to read the stars, right? They knew what the temperature of the water actually meant to what schools of fish were going to come through. They didn't have to know everything about everything.
They didn't need to know about Kim Kardashian.
But what yeah, that's right. But what they did have was actual knowledge, tested knowledge that actually worked for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Intergenerational knowledge. And they didn't need the GPS to find the fish, man. They knew exactly what time of the year and what day that school of fish was going to come through that part because of that temperature of the water and what that sun meant and what those stars meant. Like, that is real knowledge. Today, we have a millennial who doesn't know who John Lennon is. So what do? They go, hey, Siri, who is John Lennon? Born 1940, assassinated 1980, was one of the Beatles. Oh, yeah, I know John Lennon. iPhone back in the pocket.
Everything about him now that you need to know.
You don't know anything.
No.
You don't know anything. And I think that's the thing that it's been a double-edged sword. We've had access to the hive mind with the internet. And those of us who were there at not the birth of it, but like the birth of it culturally, we had to arm wrestle that thing into submission, right? Like, you didn't just have this WYSIWYG editors, right? You didn't have this stuff. We were able to arm wrestle this technology into submission and make it work for us. It had a cost to it, but it also had this but about 5 years after that, so come the late 90s, early 2000s, it was literally a toy. A toy. And by the time it became a toy and it actually had no experience required, that's when the corporations really got involved in a big way. And I think that thought control and that thought policing is detrimental. We need to get back to knowing who our neighbors are. We need to get back to knowing, like, hey, man, what's your struggle? What's going on?
Yeah. That's why you end up with things like today being Are You OK Day.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
In the old days, you didn't need to know that because you didn't need to have that so much because you knew what people were struggling and you knew the community and people in the community helped each other. Now it's like nobody knows anything about anyone, even if they're good friends or they had 600 Facebook friends and Twitter friends and stuff. So everyone.
Well, one of those
lost.
best talks that I saw was Sherry Turkle from MIT. You might have seen that, Connected But Alone. And, she was there right at MIT during the birth of the cyborg generation. Like she was really excited about how this technology was going to be an evolutionary extension to our biology. But tens of millions of dollars worth of studies later, I mean, these people were totally disheartened. They realized that we were biologically incompatible with this technology. It wasn't it in fact affected us detrimentally, psychologically, so much that most people, except for phenomena like nomophobia and things like that, most people have 28% of their subconscious mind anticipating a text message or a phone call with the smartphone in their pocket now.
Yep.
So we're not as present today as we were 10 years ago.
Facebook depression and stuff when they log on and see, because all their friends only post the good, fun things that are happening, and they don't say, a lot of them don't say I'm having a shit day or whatever. It's just, I went to Europe this week, or on this holiday we're going out and doing stuff, and everyone's like, everyone's having more fun than I am. I'm get more depressed by logging on there, but I can't stop logging on there, so you just perpetuate it.
I was watching. I've been watching a lot of videos from a guy called Simon Sinek, who's a speaker in the area of leadership. And what I watched today, just coincidentally, was about. I think it was a few years old now, but it was all about gun laws in America and what's responsible, whether it's guns or people or whatever. He was saying that in the 60s there was one mass shooting. And then I'm probably going to get the numbers wrong, but in the 70s it was like 28, and then from about the 80s or the 90s onwards, that's where it kind of skyrocketed. He's put it down to the fact that it's people that are just lonely. They just don't have an outlet. All their life is around artificial kind of stimulation and artificial friends and artificial likes, all that kind of stuff. And deep down, they've just got no way of really
nothing concrete.
Yeah, exactly, about their feelings and stuff, and that's what it all is. It's about people just being lonely and just something snaps in them.
They get frustrated because they can't control anything or change their situation, so they take it out on everyone.
Yeah, and this sort of thing didn't generally happen also when families were stronger, when communities were stronger, when I remember talking to somebody about a feud that I had with certain people from my former life a little while ago, and we were talking about how social media works and how disconnected we really are, and how, because like all consciousness is the story you tell about yourself, right? Okay, so when you're talking to or about other people, it is fascinating when you consider, if you had a rewinded, say, the gossip chain 30 years, where you were forced to actually live in a community together to survive, right? You couldn't just go down to the shop without somebody saying, no, you're not buying from me because of what you said about my wife, right? Like that's the world that existed 30 years ago. You would have worked it out.
Yeah.
You would have worked this stuff out. And when you see the rise of Antifa and like the rise of these family feuds, like almost Hatfield-McCoy style feuds again, like over social media, and the division that's being drawn, if we were actually forced to basically just switch off and have to work it out, I don't think they would last. I think most of the shit that we worry about wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It just
we need
wouldn't
to go
be
back
there
to being more Amish.
Well, we just to rely on each other, man, because like technology's a fire. It's like fire. It's just it's a tool or it's a destruction. That's what it is. And if there's one thing that the MIT studies have shown again and again and again, is that we are biologically incompatible to most forms of social media and smartphone style technologies. So put them in their place. And I'm the worst example of this, but I think the next generation, I mean, if we don't have a war and or a depression or something like that, I think the next generation is probably, the pendulum's going to swing back.
Yeah.
And they're not probably going to be as reliant as we are, because they're going to know, like asbestos, it's probably not good for your whole person to be digesting it 24/7.
Yeah. Problem is, a lot of it's so addictive. Everyone wants the new. Everyone wants to know what's happening, what's going on now, who likes my thing, and whatever. And you get addicted to it, keep coming back so much that you can't stop yourself, and it gets overpowering.
maybe for us, but hopefully, the next generation learns what we didn't.
Hopefully they learn something. Yep. Do you have any stories, Will?
Now we're all depressed.
Anything good happened this week?
couple of quick ones. Elon Musk and Tesla have been hinting at electric trucks and long haul freight and stuff like that for a while. He finally come out today and said that they will be they have a test tentatively scheduled for October 26th. So basically they're going to try and see how the whole electric truck thing handles the real world.
Cool.
But they're using it.
Not just delivering Budweiser this time.
Yeah, they'll most likely be using it at the SpaceX facility for testing, obviously, because they've got plenty of heavy things there to pull around. So, I don't know why they could use it at the Boring Company as well. That'd be all right.
Yeah.
But basically, they reckon it's going to be up to a 300-mile range, which 300 miles is what 500 k's, which in Australia doesn't sound like a lot, but we're kind of a little bit unusual here. So the long haul that we do is unheard of in most other countries. They don't sort of, a long haul sort of truck route in most other countries is,
they wouldn't go across the bight from one side to the other.
Yeah, exactly. They don't spend 3 or 4 days in a truck like they do here. So for a lot of places, especially if it recharges overnight, 300 miles for a logging truck or for a mine truck or something that's used on site to, for a no cost recharge overnight effectively. So,
well, you have spare swap over trucks that are pre-charged, ready to go, and you just swap the container over and off you go again.
Well, I think the way they're talking with this one is they're going to have basically the giant Tesla battery pack, effectively a bigger version of it, in the truck, and then there'll just be a small backup battery. So basically what you can do is you pull up to the site, you pull up to effectively a Wi-Fi charger, a wireless charger, you dump the main battery pack, you back up, you pull to the next pack beside you, reload that pack, and continue going.
Cool.
And there's also options for the trailers to have battery packs in them to extend range and that sort of stuff as well.
Yep.
So that'll be interesting to see. People have been talking about it for a while. People always said range is an issue, but Tesla usually finds pretty decent ways to get around that. So we'll see how they do there.
I saw they extended the range on a lot of vehicles because of the hurricanes at the moment with the software update.
They allowed the packs to run down further, yeah. All they did was they bumped the. I think traditionally when it got to 10%, it would hit basically limp mode, which would limit your speed, limit all the accessories you can run, basically conserve power. And then when it got down to like 2%, it went into basically effectively SNAR mode. It limited to 20 mile an hour and a few other bits and pieces.
Yep.
All they did was they know that when the battery packs hit 0, they know that they're actually still at about 20%. All they did was they knocked them down another 10% to allow them to run further into discharge, which it will damage the battery packs, but it gives people an extra.
It'll get you out.
Well, what it does is it basically gives you, if you're getting, I can't remember what the range is off the top of my head, something like 120 miles, something like that, or 180 miles. I think it's 180 miles, 300 Ks, I think they're getting.
Yep.
So what that basically means, if you now make that 180 mile and you add effectively 20% to that, because you add the 10% from the limp mode plus another 10% over in the pack. So now these ones that were getting the 180 mile are now getting 240 mile or something like that, which is another 100 Ks. That could be the difference between being able to get away or not, so and who knows, if they just discover that it actually isn't that bad on the vehicles, they might even keep it like that.
Yeah.
But it's good to see them, and this is one of the reasons Tesla said, I want all my vehicles to be interconnected, and this is exactly why. There's also another feature called there's a biohazard feature that they've all got, which you can activate manually, but they can also activate it en masse, and it basically turns the things into a self-sufficient, a biohazard-free zone, effectively. So if there's ever nuclear fallout, or if there's ever a biological fallout, they can be fully sealed from that contamination.
Interesting.
Crazy.
So they're pretty intense. So it's definitely, it's all happening, and they've only got I think they've got 20% of the gigafactory up and running, and they're already producing more batteries there than the rest of China produces. So
it's pretty crazy.
they're well on. I mean, even a lot of they work hand in hand with Samsung to produce their batteries for Tesla. Tesla was originally producing the battery. Samsung was originally producing the batteries for Tesla, but now that Tesla has a plant in place, Samsung's effectively moved into the plant and said, "Hey, let's just do this as a joint venture sort of deal, and you can produce the batteries for us effectively."
And don't let them explode.
Yeah, well, that was the problem with having untrusted battery manufacturers.
Yeah.
So, and that's the whole reason that's the whole reason Samsung sort of did this, because they know that they've got a battery manufacturer they can rely on.
Yeah.
Instead of outsourcing, it wasn't the packs that they outsourced, the battery packs they made. It was the joining and the assembly of the packs that was the issue, with the solar rubbing through and etc. So, yeah.
So you had another one?
Interesting.
Another one interesting that's relevant because I know a few people who use this. Audi Mobile has just changed their plan packages. Now, Audi used to use the old 2G network and the HSDPA network from Telstra. And of course, Telstra's now closed that. And everybody thought Audi was going to have to go to Optus or Vodafone or so on, because generally Telstra doesn't wholesale their packages. But they managed to stay with Telstra. They're now using the 4G network from Telstra.
Oh, wow.
They've also had a price drop and a plan increase. So, and the other thing they do, which nobody else does, is they roll over the data. So on a $45 a month, you basically get unlimited calls, unlimited SMS, 300 minutes of international calls, and 9 gig of data.
Sweet. That
will also roll over to the next month. So, that's not bad. Traditionally, that plan was that was a 16 gig of data plan for $45. Now it's 6 gig of data. Now it's 9. So yeah, so they've bumped it up. So yeah, the Audi plans seem to be all right. And I've still got a phone kicking in somewhere that's got a prepaid. Even their basic $15 recharge lasts 365 days as well. So
that's awesome.
It doesn't expire on you like a lot of them do if you don't recharge them every month.
Yeah. Cool. Should I go for one?
Off you go.
A Bluetooth flaw allows airborne viruses silently to attack internet-enabled devices. Vulnerabilities in Bluetooth could allow airborne computer viruses to spread silently, potentially infecting billions of devices around the world, a team of cybersecurity experts has warned. Infection via Blueborn would not require a user to click on a link or download a file, as it spreads silently via Bluetooth-enabled devices. Tech giants including Google, Apple and Microsoft have been made aware of the flaws and have responded. Dan Tehan, from the minister assisting the Prime Minister of Cybersecurity, said the Australian government had notified device manufacturers. The Australian Cybersecurity Centre is aware of the vulnerabilities, but is not aware of them having been exploited. The vulnerabilities reported concerning device manufacturers have been notified and are working on updates to fix the vulnerabilities. The ACSC recommends that all users apply the latest software security updates to their devices. Device owners should consider disabling Bluetooth functionality on your device where it isn't required. The 8 security gaps were identified by US cyber startup Aramis this year. Researchers found the weaknesses could allow attackers to take control of Bluetooth-enabled devices, such as laptops, phones, TV sets and watches, and execute code remotely or intercept traffic between them. No security mechanism is there to block incoming Bluetooth connections, so an attacker can bypass all of them completely. Aramis reported the weaknesses to Apple, Google and Microsoft in April and to Linux in August. Most of the tech companies have fixed the flaw. Apple addressed it with the release of iOS 10 last year. Security updates for Android devices have also been issued. However, we know there's going to be a lot of Apple devices and Android devices that are not going to get updated ever. So potentially, if you've got an old device, turn off the Bluetooth.
Get a new one.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not really that new. They were doing it ages ago with the phone spoofing and dialing numbers.
That's right.
It's the same thing that was going on with the thumb drives. Mocking a keyboard or a mouse or something that doesn't require user permission for self-install. It's the same thing with that. You set your device to scan something or to available and whatever is around to scan it. If it doesn't require a password to connect, it'll just automatically connect.
Yep.
I don't. And once they patch this, I'll just find another way of doing it. I don't think it's such a huge issue. Yes, I understand saying potentially it could be a thing. But
probably not though.
Yeah, the amount of data and the speed of data transfer over Bluetooth is so damn slow that you'd have to stay within 10 meters of your target for, such a X period of time to transfer the data.
You see somebody following along behind you with a briefcase trying to keep up. Yeah. He might be trying to hack your phone.
That's pretty much it. Like I don't know if you've ever used like some of the Bluetooth data sharing apps that you can get. It's even to copy across the photo from one phone to the next takes, a good couple of minutes.
Yeah, I used to love sitting in an office with all these people around and bluejacking their phones. Just type in a note into your notepad on application on your phone and then go hit send, and then you scan for anybody else who's got Bluetooth enabled, hit send, and it just pops up on their phone. They're like, where the hell did this come from? One of the guys I worked with went through everybody and eventually came over to me and he's like, Oaks, it was you, wasn't it? I was like, what? He's like, I knew it was you, you bastard. Stop sending messages to my phone. I was like...
Yeah, and that's the thing. The thing about turning Bluetooth off is not a bad idea. It saves on battery to start with. If you're not using Bluetooth devices, you don't need to have your Bluetooth feature on.
Yep.
It's the same as Wi-Fi. If you're not using Wi-Fi, you don't need to have it on. But in my case, everywhere I go, I've got Bluetooth.
Yep.
Bluetooth
my watch connects to my phone through Bluetooth, so I can't.
That's it. And I've got the headset at work. It connects to the Bluetooth in the car. It connects to the Bluetooth stereo at home. So I'm always connected to Bluetooth as well.
Do you have much Bluetooth stuff, Shane?
Yeah, got the watch.
What's that one?
It's the what do they call it?
The Android one?
Yeah, it's Android. I can't think of the name of it.
Samsung one?
No, Fossil.
Fossil. Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I didn't want to bloody spend like hundreds of dollars and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So this one was like just under $300. Doesn't do anything like Android Pay and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but notifications though. That's what you're after.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Cool.
Awesome.
Any more stories, Will?
There's a few, but I think we're probably running fairly long, are we? How are we going?
You guys will like this one. I'm sure you've all seen it, but it'll crack you guys up. You non-Apple fanboys, you. Did you see that man lines up outside Apple Store 10 days early for iPhone X?
No.
Did you see? Okay. Right. So self-proclaimed Apple fanatic Mazen Karouche was so excited for the release of the iPhone X, he camped outside the company's George Street store in Sydney 10 days early to ensure he would be the first to secure the new device.
I've seen him
when it went on sale September 22. Only when Apple announced the 10th anniversary edition of iPhone X during its annual event on Wednesday, it said pre-orders would not open until October 27th and shipping would not begin until November 3rd. This means the 20-year-old had already been camped outside Apple Store for more than 48 hours before finding out he would only be receiving the iPhone 8. I'm not fond of the iPhone 8. If you compare it to the 7, you'll notice not much has changed. I would definitely prefer to receive an X after 10 days of waiting. So this poor guy,
sucker,
he's like over a month early to the party. It would have been a long wait.
I've already seen a survey that says nobody wants the iPhone 8. They only want the Plus or the X. Like, wow, that was fast. It only just got announced.
They all want their face. They all want the facial recognition, so they don't have to use their hands. How old-fashioned are you to have to use your hands?
That's new cutting-edge technology, Will.
Android
never
hasn't
been done
doing it
before.
For at least 3 or 4 years.
Never been done before on a desktop like Windows or an Android.
It's never been done before by an Apple iPhone.
It's revolutionary.
And this is what I was saying a couple of weeks ago about why I hate Apple. They make reasonable products most of the time. The reason I hate Apple is they use everybody else's products, relabel it, and release it 3 years later and charge twice as much.
And then sue them.
Yeah, that's why I hate Apple. But they're gonna
Oh, you.
That Android
you.
copied the notifications thing that pulls down from the top. You remember?
Yeah, that's right.
After Apple copied it from them, then they, yeah.
No, because the new Note doesn't have no buttons or anything. So why should the new iPhone?
Right. Does it go all the way to the edges though? Huh?
I think
Yes.
No,
so,
it doesn't.
decide.
It
Yeah,
says
it
it does. It
Side
says
to
it
side
does.
Top and bottom doesn't.
No, it's actually got a frame still.
Yeah.
Why say
Yeah,
it doesn't?
I don't know. Like the whole thing of not having a home button on an iPhone to me, like I hate not having a physical button. I hated it when it happened on Android. I just love the back button. But this whole brave new world of being touchscreen only does
Soft
not
buttons.
excite me at all.
At
Yeah.
least
but
they have
hang
the
on.
home button
Apple-
on the SA to
Call
say
me
haptic
old-fashioned,
feedback.
but I like physical buttons.
You're
Apple-
old-fashioned.
Apple only had one button. They only had the home button. And guess which button broke all the time?
The other one.
They had the power button, they had the home button, they had your volume buttons. Come on, man.
Yeah, Will.
Yeah. And the most important one, the one that you actually do anything,
You and your fake news.
is the one that
Your
broke all.
fake
Every
news.
Worse than
iPhone
CNN,
that's
you
12
are.
months old-
Yeah,
every
Will
iPhone
CNN
that's more than 12
Tompkinson.
months old. Actually, except your mothers, every iPhone that's more than 12 months old has got a broken home button. I swear that phone that your mother has like was tested in a
The
military
undead.
facility for bomb proofness or something. It's insane, that thing. The
Yeah,
original
I actually met a guy the other day who's still running the first edition iPhone. It's insane. And it works perfectly well. I don't think he updated it past 2.0 or something.
I'm sure you
Tell him
can't
to
see the
turn off
screen.
Bluetooth, will you?
For calls and that's right. For calls and texts, I just thought, oh my gosh, like this is horrible.
Lasts forever.
I had the first generation one and sent it back many years before I got the next one. But it was wow, it's just amazing. It's just you couldn't copy and paste text. Like you couldn't do really
No, it
basic
wasn't an
things.
Android.
Yeah.
You had to get a software update for it.
Microsoft did the same thing. They couldn't copy and paste.
Yeah, but I was a big BlackBerry fanboy back in those days. So
That explains it all.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah,
still
explain.
not dead. Everybody said they were going away, but they're still hanging on.
Yep.
They just
Oh,
released
mate.
a new one.
If you use those BlackBerry the QWERTY keyboards, like they are everything. You know, like you don't want to go back. If you're writing massive amounts of text, you just don't want to go back. But I think there was this great Samsung's being sued, aren't they? Because they've got one that's basically identical to the BlackBerry keyboard that you can snap onto the new Galaxies. And it's an official Samsung product, but BlackBerry's trying to sue them. So
There's only so many different ways you can make a keyboard look.
You could flip it upside down, right?
that's right.
Go back
Type
to
at the
the
top and the screen's at the bottom, huh? Didn't think of that.
go back
did ya?
to the what's the other form of keyboard? The not the QWERTY, the other style.
Oh, that
Dvorak.
is the worst thing
Dvorak.
ever.
Yeah, go back to the Dvorak keyboard. That'll fix them.
Is it?
You want to
It's
slow technology down? Give everybody one of those to learn.
It'll be faster.
what
Once you
was
get
this
to
key setup? Because I actually, a couple of years ago, a friend of mine had a MacBook. He's from Italy, and he had a MacBook that had that setup. Not QWERTY. What was it? How does it go?
Yeah, the Dvorak. It's just a different key configuration.
It was impossible to find anything.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I have enough trouble now when I go to like an yeah. I have enough trouble now when I go to a place like on the TV set-top box or something like that, and they have it in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I hate
who
that.
does that?
Even my daughter hates that. She's like, why is it not QWERTY? It makes sense. I know where
It was
everything
funny
is.
back in the day when you used to ring a number, like you'd ring, 1-800-PIZZA, for example.
Yep.
And you'd ring it on the home phone, it'd work, and you'd ring it on the mobile and it wouldn't, and you couldn't figure out why. Then you realised that the numbers and the letters don't correspond the same on a mobile as they did on the home phone.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I actually saw an old typewriter recently. Elderly person had a typewriter, and it was literally A B C D E F G H I J K L M N. Yeah, like
They used to
That-
be. The reason they went to the QWERTY keyboard was to actually slow the typists down because they were jamming the hammers on the keyboards.
Yeah.
On the
Really?
So
typewriters.
they
went
did
to
they
the
like, we'll
QWERTY.
just mess all it up so it'll screw them up and they'll go slower. And then they learned that by finger memory, and then they got just as fast as they were before and had the
Well,
same
they actually
problem.
went
but they're
faster,
stuck with-
which is
they're
why they
stuck
went
with
to the Dvorak. Then the professional typists swapped over to the Dvorak format to keep them slow them down again. And another 6 months later, once they learned that, they went quicker again, so they went fine. So that's when IBM bought out the Speedball.
Yeah. The
that
Dvorak
problem.
one was made with the most common letters, where the home keys the next most common were at the top and the least common were at the bottom. And it just made them like 30 to 50% faster.
Not to learn though. I actually tried to learn it because I wanted to just be different and have that ability.
I didn't want to because the job that I had was fixing other people's computers, and if I learn muscle memory on Dvorak and then I sit down at a QWERTY, I'd be completely screwed. I'd be like, what the hell? I can't. I just get one of those Microsoft ergonomic split wave keyboards, and I use that at work, and other people sit down and use my computer. They're like, what the hell is this? How can you can't type on that? Yeah,
One of these, yeah.
exactly.
I used to hate ergonomic keyboards, but now that I'm on the laptop keyboard at the moment, but now, and not using this,
The
you
4000's
really
the
notice
best,
the difference.
yeah.
This is
Do they make them anymore? I don't think they do. So you have to.
This is a 4000. Yeah, you
way
can still
more.
buy them. Well, this one's only a couple months old.
Oh, okay.
'Cause
I
my
need
other
to
one
get
died. My
another
space
one.
bar died.
The
needed
space bar or the
space
B on
bars.
mine dies. I ended up getting this cheap one just because it was cheap and quick, but I need to get one of those again for here.
Every Microsoft keyboard I've had, or every ergonomic Microsoft keyboard I've had, the space bars died on them.
Do you know why I had to get that? Because my hand was getting cramped up playing Minecraft
Minecraft, yeah.
with WASD, and so I got an ergonomic one just for that reason. Then it ended up being the best keyboard ever.
And the one thing I thought I would never use, and it's the most useless key you think you'd ever come across, is
The
in
roller.
the middle of the keyboard.
Yeah.
It's a scroll wheel effectively, scrolls up and down. Use it all the time.
Oh, okay, I
"Who
never
puts
used
that
it."
key there? Because you're just sitting back at the desk, just chilling, and you just flick it up and down. You don't even have to,
It's kind of like having the forward and back buttons on your mouse. You can't do without them anymore. And the
Oh
scroll
no, I
wheel.
disable those. The first thing I do when I get a mouse is turn those off.
I can't do without
The
them.
scroll
I
wheel,
have to have
yeah.
them.
But
Scroll wheel forward and back buttons. I'm
the
lost
other
without
thing
them.
that I always make sure I disable is the DPI button, because the amount of times I've hit that, and then your mouse just gets, you're like, yes,
Whee!
stop.
I can't play this game anymore. I have to reboot the computer.
Tell you what's weird though, I've got a Razer Vespula keyboard mouse mat,
Yep.
and it's double-sided. One side is for speed.
Yep.
It's slippery and smooth, and the trackball
That's where you
runs
put your
off the
drugs.
Razer up really fast. And the other side is for accuracy. It's got a rippled surface, and it
Okay.
grabs the mouse and slows the mouse down. So if you're doing gaming and stuff, you flick it onto the speed side. But if you're doing like CAD drawings and stuff like that, you throw it onto the accuracy side.
Nice.
It's unbelievably actually works really well.
It's crazy.
I thought it was a gimmick. I mean, it grips that well. It's actually worn the little tag off the bottom of my mouse.
Best mouse pad ever. Well, that did bring us up to the end of the show.
One of those full table ones.
We made it.
We made it.
We made it.
We crapped on long enough. Thanks for listening to the Aussie
Thanks,
Tech
Luke.
Head Show. What was that? You do that every time, you bastard.
Shane should take it out. He said nothing at all. He's just here.
7 words. What are you talking about?
He's been talking.
No, I'm
We
good.
can't shut him up. That's the problem. That's why we don't have him on the show. He never
Yeah,
shuts
I
up.
know, right? You just can't get a word in edgewise.
Thanks for listening to the Aussie Tech Heads Show, broadcast weekly. We can be found at facebook.com/Aussie Tech Heads, twitter.com/Aussie Tech Heads, and youtube.com, you guessed it, Aussie Tech Heads. Email is Glenn, Will, Warlock, Eric, and Shane, I think, at
Complaints,
aussietechheads.com.au. You can hear Aussie Tech Heads on aussietechradio.com, 27.4 back-to-back play of some of the best
That
tech,
includes weekends and holidays.
and that leap day with the leap hour in it. Play some of the best tech-related shows from around Australia and New Zealand. New shows added every Friday. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Like, subscribe. Tell us how much you hate Will down below, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.